Hello, my loves. Welcome back to the Balance Swan podcast, Soul on Fire. We are back for another solo episode today where I just chat with you guys as if we are sitting in the same room together on the couch where I'm sitting and just in conversation with you, which is my favorite way to connect during quarantine because I feel like we are getting info from so many different areas, from all over the place, from every angle. And it's nice to just talk and have a breather. And I feel like solo episodes can kind of mimic that in real life hanging out type of feeling where I don't know about you, but when I listen to other people's solo episodes, I walk away from the conversation feeling like I've just had a conversation with that person. So I'm quite dedicated to bringing you guys solo episodes during this time. And it's also been really nice for me to record solo episodes to get my thoughts out during this wild time. And also because I'm really focusing on going inward and healing my body during this quarantine. And it's been very successful. I would highly recommend listening to my water fasting solo episode from a couple weeks ago if you haven't heard it yet, because I am finally healing from chronic Lyme disease and from having been very sick for the last 3 years. And I'm feeling better than I've felt in a really long time. And for a lot of different reasons, I am choosing to do almost all solo episodes during this time. I will have some friends on just because having a conversation with a friend never really feels like an interview. But I'm kind of stepping back from certain interviews at this point, and I've polled you guys on Instagram and here and asked you what you like and if you're into the solo episode life. And a lot of you have told me that yes, solo episodes feel really supportive during this time. So today, I wanted to use today's solo episode to get into a topic that I think is really important that I've been wanting to cover on the podcast for a long time. And now seems like the perfect time to do it. So today we're going to talk about something that I know everybody listening has dealt with at some point in their life. I know I certainly have, and that is body image and finding confidence in our body, in the skin we're in, while loving our body, but also knowing that it's okay to want to feel better, to want to optimize our body and our health and our fitness and how we feel from the inside out. So to be honest with you guys, I already recorded like 15 minutes of this before and then decided to start all over because I wanted to just condense my thoughts and share them with you here in a concise way and in a way that makes sense to you as to why this is such an important topic in my life. So first, I want to start with the fact that what inspired me to record this topic was that I've noticed so much shaming on social media. You can call it body shaming. You can call it whatever else you want to call it, tearing people down. For people who want to either lose weight or get stronger or feel better in their own skin by eating a certain way or living a certain way, exercising, etc. And I've really seen the shift happen over the last 7 years that I've been using social media full-time, blogging full-time on Instagram and the blog and everywhere else, where 7 years ago, when I started blogging health and wellness, it was so much on the cutting edge that it was very exciting to people. And I agree with a lot of people in the sense that it was taken too far. There were a lot of things at that time being spread on social media about losing weight and skinny this, skinny that. And that is definitely not what I'm here to talk about. But I've noticed the huge shift take place where now there's such an anti-that movement. So it's like body positivity is one thing. It's so amazing. I am a huge fan of the body positivity movement. I think it's inspiring. I think it's motivating. I think it's important to love the skin you're in, no matter the size, no matter where you are in your journey. so important, especially because of the law of attraction and also because of the pure fact that waking up and being happy in our own skin every day, that's the one goal. But I also think the detriment of the body positivity movement and surrounding movements, anti-diet culture, etc., is that it's become very trendy in certain circles to be anti-health and to be anti-optimization of our bodies. And I've really witnessed it happen, as I'm sure many other people have. And I just want to be a voice somewhere in the middle to remind you that yes, it's okay to aspire for more. Yes, it's okay to focus on optimization. It is more than okay to want to get stronger, to want to get leaner, to want to lose weight, to want to reflect on the outside the health and radiance that you feel on the inside, or to want to get out of bad patterns and bad eating habits. And people come to me all the time as a blogger in the wellness space and a proponent of the plant-based lifestyle and a health coach. People come to me all the time wanting to change their lives and wanting to find more optimal health, either by getting stronger and having a healthier relationship with food and with the fuel that they nourish themselves with, or wanting to lose weight, wanting to lose inflammation, wanting to get stronger, wanting to feel better, and also reverse disease and reverse inflammation. And I do think it's really unfortunate that these things can be so frowned upon in certain areas now. And I know it completely astounded me the first time that I did a water fast for my health for Lyme disease, when I was completely bedridden, living with head to toe hives, so inflamed, so miserable, couldn't even function enough to go see Jonathan, who was my boyfriend at the time before he was my husband. Couldn't do anything. I lost everything in my life because I was so sick. And I went to go do a water fast. This was 2 years ago now. And I was, to say that I was slaughtered by the anti-diet culture would be an understatement. And it was pretty shocking to me, just the cruel words that were hurled my way. And that's not what we're here to talk about, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that people who lash out at other people on the internet, no matter what their motivation is, are unhappy in their own life and they're looking for a target. They're waiting for somebody to slip up. They're waiting for somebody to do something that they don't agree with so that they can lash out. And that was kind of my first taste of how much things have changed. And I will be the first to say that there are many positive aspects of that. I don't think social media should be used as a place to show young people that eating a certain way can change their body. That's not what any of us, that's not what I am into. That's not what anyone who I follow, who I admire, is in the business of at all. But what I am very, very passionate about is showing people and reminding them that you can aspire to live your best life and you can aspire to feel as good and pure and clean and light inside and out as possible. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I know that part of why I've been through this chronic illness healing journey and healing huge major inflammation in my body is because I am meant to be a voice for this group of people. And hopefully, if you're listening, you're one of those people. And even if you're not, I hope that you can take some stuff away from this conversation regardless. And also, just wanted to say I have been gathering your questions on Instagram about this. So I'm going to do a Q&A in this episode also. So you can look forward to that in a little bit after this chit chat. But first, I kind of just wanted to tell you guys about my journey with losing weight and inflammation and my health journey overall. So this is kind of going to be a 2-part episode where I share with you in this episode about my health and my health journey and some places that I've been. And then in next week's solo episode, it's kind of going to be a part 2 about how I found health coaching and how that really saved my life and turned a lot of things around for me and taught me a lot. So today is going to focus more on body image and confidence and radiance on the inside out. And then next week is going to focus more on healing, the plant-based way of life, answer all your questions about my health coaching journey, and give you guys some insight if you want to become a health coach and that kind of thing. So first, let's kind of just start with my journey over the last 7 years. So I moved to New York 7 years ago. I had just started blogging. I was new to the blogging world. I was the blonde vegan. I had been vegan for a couple years at this point and was feeling really amazing. My body felt better than it ever had. And ultimately, I was very young. I was 21, and I ran into some roadblocks with the way that I was going about my diet, mostly because I was not totally informed on all things plant-based nutrition. And I didn't realize that I wasn't getting enough nutrients. So I wasn't really eating a range of things like legumes and grains and nuts and seeds. I was focusing a lot more on purely fruits and vegetables. And fruits and vegetables are so healing, and life has come very full circle for me now that I've been sick with Lyme for the last several years, because fruits and vegetables, I can truly say, are what has healed me, which is why I know that our souls have so much to do with our lives, and our soul path and our soul purpose is always guiding us, which is why I've always been drawn to plants and the plant-based diet and the plant-based lifestyle. And I do believe it's why I became so passionate, and some might say obsessed, with the plant-based way of life when I was so much younger. When I first found vegetarianism when I was 14, and then around the time that I was like 19, 20, when I became vegan and became really, really, really passionate. So to make a long story short, I wasn't getting enough nutrients, and I was already very much in the public eye. There were not a lot of health bloggers back then. So anyone who was blogging in a big way had a lot of eyeballs on us, which was awesome and great and something I loved and have always been so grateful for. And it also caused a lot of confusion back then because I was so young and I didn't fully know who I was at that time in many ways. And I kind of let other opinions sway me quite a bit. And I got really scared because I lost my period for a little while. I stopped menstruating and was worried about my health, and met some people who kind of pushed me / inspired me to start eating some other foods again. And I very, very, very publicly transitioned from being vegan to not being vegan. And the horrible part of all this was that I became unwillingly and unwantingly this media poster child for veganism gone wrong. And it was truly traumatizing. And I don't even want to talk about it in this episode very much because I just don't resonate with it at all. I don't relate to it at all. And I feel a lot of media outlets capitalized at my expense at that time on me and this very personal journey that I was going through, and twisted my words and all these other things. And meanwhile, I was going through somewhat of a personal health crisis where I was no longer vegan, and I began stuffing my face with food. Now that I was eating all sorts of things again, I was eating eggs and fish and meat and poultry and all these foods that I hadn't eaten in years. I told myself the only way I can find health again and find balance, quote unquote, is by overdoing it and by stuffing my face with these other foods. And this makes me very sad to say and very sad to talk about because it was a very hard time for me. And I ended up in the public eye gaining about 30 pounds and also not feeling like myself at all on the inside or the outside, but being very praised in a very public way for overcoming this battle and overcoming this disordered eating, etc. And now looking back on it, and this is a touchy subject for many, so I apologize if this is touchy for you at all. But I look back now and I know in my heart with every fiber of my being, and it makes me want to cry because I know in my heart with every piece of me that I was not suffering from an eating disorder. I was suffering from Lyme, from very, very, very chronic, debilitating Lyme disease symptoms. And meanwhile, I took myself off of this healing diet that I was so passionate about and started eating all of these foods that for my body were incredibly inflammatory. So like I said, I gained 30 pounds. I had cystic acne. I had a stomach ulcer. I had a fibroid that I didn't know about, but a fibroid on my uterus that was growing. So I don't know how big it was at that point, but it became the size of a grapefruit before I had to have it surgically removed. And I just didn't feel like myself at all. And maybe I will share some photos, some before and after photos on social media, or some before photos, because you guys know what the after photos look like. It's me now. So that you can see what I'm talking about. And I was blogging during this whole time as well. And there were many silver linings to this time. And I still feel very proud that I was able to be a voice back then to those who were suffering from disordered eating and orthorexia, and anyone who I helped on that journey. I will forever feel proud, and I don't disregard that that's a very important topic and a very important subject. But I just look back on that time in my life with so much grace and so much love for myself, because I was not in a good place. And I now see that I was kind of backed into a corner and ended up just talking about a lot of things that I don't really think were true for me. And what is true for me is that I stopped feeling like myself. I stopped feeling good in my body, and I stopped feeling good about myself for a while. And that's what we're going to get into now, which is body image and how I overcame a lot of those issues that I was experiencing. But before we do, I would like to thank our new sponsor for the show, someone who I'm really excited to be working with, Organifi. So, Organifi is this incredible brand that I've been connecting with for a long time on social media and chatting with the founder. And it's actually shocking that now is the first time that I'm working with Organifi. So first about them, what I want you to know is that you can use the code BLONDE, BLONDE, for 15% off any product on Organifi.com. So you just go to Organifi.com/blonde for 15% off, and that's ORGANIFI.com. So my favorite Organifi product is their Organifi green juice. And you can probably guess why, because I am such a green juice junkie. And ever since I finished my water fast, I have been having this Organifi green juice every morning, usually after my celery juice. And then before I have fruit for breakfast, I have this Organifi green juice, and it just gives me a huge boost of greens. It's full of real superfood ingredients. It's a brand that I trust. So, there's a lot of things that have to happen to become TBD approved. And one of those things is that, the product has to be organic. It has to be full of vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. It has to be truly life-changing, something that I use in my day-to-day life and something I believe in. And then it also has to be a product that is founded and backed by people who I like and who are very kind. And so Organifi passes all of those tests. Organifi green juice is certified USDA organic. It's also dairy-free, gluten-free, keto-friendly, soy-free, and 100% vegan. When you get Organifi, when you order it, it ships right to your door. So you never have to run to the store, which right now is especially important in these times that we live in. And a recurring delivery schedule is included in the subscriptions. So it can be automatically delivered on your schedule whenever works for you. And it is full of real superfood ingredients. So in the Organifi green juice, which is my favorite, there's ashwagandha, moringa, chlorella, matcha green tea, turmeric, plus spirulina, mint, wheatgrass, lemon, and coconut in a delicious, healthy superfood blend. So I think you guys know, because I talk about ashwagandha all the time, but ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb that helps to modulate the responses to stress or to a changing environment. So it basically brings your body back to homeostasis. It's an herb that's shown to reduce cortisol, which improves immunity and is just good for your cells overall. Same with chlorella. Chlorella is a green algae, super high in protein and in healthy fats, and it's just good for your immune system. So I highly recommend Organifi. You can check them out. They have a lot of different products, but I highly recommend the Organifi green juice. That's the Balance Blonde #1 pick. And I've definitely noticed improvements. I've noticed more energy. I've noticed lower stress. My immune system has been really strong. Normally, this time of year, I get terrible allergies and they haven't been as bad. And I've just had more energy than I've had in forever, which, as you guys know, if you follow me on Instagram, I've been running again lately. I've been spending more time outside. It's really exciting. So check them out. Order any Organifi product today and you'll get 15% off at Organifi.com/blonde. That's Organifi.com/blonde for 15% off any product. Organifi.com/blonde. Check them out. You guys will fall in love. So now let's talk a little bit about confidence and how I got my confidence back. So I was really struggling. As I mentioned, I had gained 30 pounds in a really short period of time. This happened over the course of about 6 or 7 months, and I was very young. I was only 22 when this happened. I had just moved back to LA from New York, and I was very much at a loss. I had no idea what was going on. I knew I had hormone imbalances just intuitively, but I didn't know why. And I was getting information from like 100 different angles. So people were telling me, oh, you have hormone imbalances because you were vegan, blah, blah, blah. And sadly, because I was young and I still had a lot to learn, I believed some of this, even though now I know, looking back, it's not true. Being plant-based cannot cause you those issues, not in the way that I was experiencing them. So I kept stuffing my face with more and more animal foods I was eating. Tons of burgers and poultry and other things. And I was blowing up like a balloon. And when I look back on these photos of myself, I just feel so much compassion for me, for my young self. And I know it was all part of my journey. And I'm also not sitting here shaming anyone who eats animal foods. But what I am saying is what I was doing was not good. I was pretty much binge eating in my own way, where I would just overeat in every meal to really stuff myself. And with my binge eating and overeating, it was never that I was sitting there binging constantly. And I've read stories about people binging where they just eat until they make themselves sick all the time. That was not something that I did very frequently, but I would just overstuff myself at every meal. And it was really as a way to show myself and also show the world, the people watching me, that I felt that I was healed and I didn't have this restrictive eating anymore. And that became really, really unhealthy in and of itself. And when I look back on any type of disordered eating behavior that I had, that's what it was. It was binging out on food. And then food became this mechanism of controlling a lot of things. And also, I believe in a spiritual sense, packing on the pounds on my body, it gave me this like protective layer that I felt I needed. And this is all very energetic. And this is also me looking back on the situation, because at the time I didn't feel this way, but looking back on the situation, I absolutely know that having that quote unquote protective layer made me feel a little bit less seen. And I didn't want to be so scrutinized in the media and the public eye. And I just wanted people to leave me alone. And I think that eating and giving myself this layer of whatever, this weight that I had put on, was like a protective mechanism for me. Like, it made me feel safe, but it also made me feel terrible about myself. And I would go through these periods of eating really, really well and leaning back on these foods that I knew were so healing for me, like plant-based foods and fruits and vegetables. But then I would swing wildly the other direction because I was listening to nutritionists and people who were telling me fruit is bad for you, fruit is causing your hormone imbalances, you need to be sugar-free, you need to be carb-free. And this is when I went keto, ladies and gentlemen, which I think a lot of people who've followed me for a long time might remember. And that was also a crazy time, and it was tough for me. And long story short, I had been living and walking around with this extra 30 pounds on me, not feeling like myself at all, with cystic acne and eating foods that didn't make me feel good, and also drinking a lot of alcohol. I was dating somebody at the time who, our thing was going out to really late dinners and like gourmet, really nice restaurants and having martinis and vodka sodas and cocktails. And this was like all week long. It wasn't just on the weekends. Like, this was our thing. And we did this all the time. And yes, it was fun, but ultimately, I don't think anything is worth feeling so miserable and unhappy in your own skin. And that's how I was feeling. And I just didn't feel like myself, because the thing is, on the inside, I knew who I was. I was Jordan. I was me. I was this light, free-spirited energy. And on the outside, I wasn't reflecting someone who was happy, and I wasn't reflecting someone who was confident or was eating well or doing anything really. And at the time, I was running marathons, I was doing high intensity interval training, but nothing on the outside was reflecting that. All I was reflecting was kind of this extra weight and not feeling well, and then my skin issues. And clearly, I was in a bit of a negative self-talk spiral as well. And I say clearly because that is something that I see when I look back on the photos, and I have videos from that time. And I remember that time really clearly. And so what we're here to really focus on today is how I got my confidence back and how I got my life back. And it wasn't through just losing the weight and my skin clearing up. It was through learning to love myself in the process, and learning that I can make a change and I can optimize my life. And throughout this whole journey, I was learning a lot about nutrition, and at the time, I was doing the Institute of Integrative Nutrition's health coaching program, which next week's episode is going to be all about. But if you want to sign up for IIN through my link, which gets you $2,000 off of your tuition, plus a free gift from me, we'll leave that link in the show notes. I highly recommend checking it out, and then you'll learn more about it in next week's episode. But I was learning a ton about nutrition at the time, so I was getting more and more empowered on my own. And that empowerment was very exciting and something that really started to shift my mindset, because all of a sudden I was able to listen to myself again and listen to my gut and my intuition and my inner core, rather than listening to what everybody else was telling me on the outside. And this, my friends, was very exciting, because I was it was getting to be a really dark time listening to other people never feeling good in my skin. So what I did was I started to take my power back. And I did that through strengthening my intuition and then knowing what foods worked for me and what foods didn't work for me. And I had certain foods that were certainly triggers for me, which I started to notice around this time that if I had these foods around or if I routinely ate these foods, I wouldn't be able to stop. And I also would feel horrible about myself. And so I learned just purely through learning about nutrition and then based off of my own intuition, I don't need to have these foods around me. They trigger me. They don't make me feel good about myself. And just because I'm not going to have them around me doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with me. I just don't need to have those foods around. And that was really, really empowering. So a few of those foods that I noticed for me was frozen yogurt, because I think it's because I hadn't had frozen yogurt in so long. And then you go to a frozen yogurt place and you can literally top it with like every type of genetically modified candy under the sun. And for some reason, because you're at a frozen yogurt place, it seems like it's okay when usually, at least something that I believe in my heart is that I don't eat that kind of food. I don't eat processed food like that, or at least I try not to, and I don't like to. So something about going to a frozen yogurt place always felt like this free for all for me when I was going through these issues. And honestly, when I realized that cutting out the trigger for me, which was the frozen yogurt, which was another thing I used to do when I was dating this person that I mentioned before. We would get frozen yogurt a lot. And he was a man with this great metabolism and worked out all the time, no issues. Well, we were in very different places in that point. And when I eliminated this trigger food from my life, things immediately started to get better because I started to build the trust within myself, because I told myself, I'm eliminating this from my life. I don't need to go to a frozen yogurt place and load up on this food and basically binge out on it, which I was doing all the time. This wasn't like a once a week, once a month thing. It was like all or nothing. Like I'm going all the time, like every night or every few nights or never. And so I decided to go never. And I started building that trust within myself, and it felt really good. And once I started building that trust, my confidence started coming back. And it's crazy that it came from something as seemingly minor as going to a frozen yogurt shop, but it's not minor at all when you're building promises with yourself, you're building confidence with yourself. And similarly, I was doing a lot of other things to build my confidence, like I was training for a marathon. And even if that was not the best in retrospect for my cortisol levels, it was incredible for building confidence because I trained for that thing for 6 months. I was not a runner before that, and I ran the marathon. I ran 26.2 miles and I crushed it. And I did it with Jonathan. We were friends back then. He trained me for it, and nothing had felt so good. And I was so proud of myself. And that was a huge confidence builder. And then I started to build confidence in my life in many other ways, like within my spiritual journey. And I was committing to a lot of things, and I was following through with them. So I committed to my 500-hour yoga training. I was deep in the middle of that at the time. I completed it. I was very proud of myself. My spiritual journey was taking off. I was getting into Kundalini yoga. That was really special because I started meditating and then I started channeling. And in so many ways, I just learned how to trust myself. And once I learned how to trust myself and I could tune out the noise of everyone else, my body found its rhythm and its groove. And this is not a story about me coming back into my body and feeling amazing in a short amount of time. This took years. This took like 2.5 or 3 years for me to intuitively come back to eating a plant-based lifestyle, trust myself enough to do that, and to know that kind of avoiding sugar and these foods that just made me feel awful was good for me and it wasn't bad for me because of these ingrained thoughts that I had in my head from the media talking about me like I had something wrong with me in the past for focusing on health. And ultimately, my confidence started coming back, but it started coming back before I fully made the switch because it was such an internal thing and making those promises to myself and keeping them. And it's something that I still do to this day. So if I ever have the urge to overeat or to binge eat in my kitchen out of stress or out of being overwhelmed or whatever else, I know in my heart and my soul, I'm not going to because I don't do those things to myself anymore. I only do positive things for myself and I don't put myself through that anymore. I know the pain of what that comes with and I also know what the underlying feelings are. And the underlying feelings are so much deeper always than the food or the outer circumstances. And for me, I was in quite a bit of an unhealthy relationship at that time. And so I very much was focusing on other things and not trusting myself. And I also was coming out of the insane trauma of what I had been through in the media during that time. My family was going through a lot and I just I had lifelong confidence. I would say I had such high confidence levels my whole life. And I lost it during that time. And it's also because I didn't feel like myself. I didn't look like myself and I didn't feel like myself. So, all of this to say, over about a 3-year period, I ended up losing all of that weight and coming back to my healthy, happy, ideal body weight, which I think I can wholeheartedly say is a very healthy place for me to be. And I feel like a healthy role model in many ways because I am at a healthy body weight. I feel good. I believe now that I radiate health and confidence from the inside out because I feel healthy and confident from the inside out. And that has made a world of difference in my life. And now I know that confidence is something that comes from the inside and from listening to my inner voice and not listening to other people's opinions of what I should do or shouldn't do, what's bad for me, what's good for me. And that's not to say that you can't have trusted people in your life, especially when you're searching for that confidence within yourself, like a trusted nutritionist, a trusted family member or doctor. Of course, it's good to have other opinions and to have people you listen to, but never at the expense of drowning out your own inner voice and your own intuition. And then the other part of it for me was accepting and knowing that it is okay to strive for more. It is okay to strive for an optimized life. And I think part of what really inspired me on that level, other than finding people in my life who expanded me in that way, as my friend Lacey Phillips would call it, an expander. I found a lot of expanders in my life who were healthy and they were also looking to live even more healthy, optimal lives. People like Natalia Rose and Kimberly Snyder and Melissa Wood Health, who's been on this podcast. So many other people. I mean, the list goes on. I found a lot of expanders in that area. And also being with Jonathan, because being with Jonathan has taught me so much about optimizing your life. He is so inspired and so motivated to be better, to do better every single day in every area of his life. So if he's not doing something super out there like an Ironman or a triathlon, he's still training, he's still keeping his body in optimal shape. He's eating well, he is being the best husband that he can. He's writing letters to me every day. He's waking up earlier to go on runs or to do his rowing machine or to call his brother and be an incredible uncle who FaceTimes with his niece every day. Like, he blows me away. And he's the kind of person that I aspire to be, where everything Jonathan wants to get done in a day, he will do. And that's not something I've been able to achieve, having Lyme and having to rest so much for the last several years. But watching him, simply even watching him do that every day, expands me and inspires me in so many ways. And then for me, I've just gone on this incredible journey of finding an anti-inflammatory way of life, and that has changed everything for me. So finding the salt, oil, sugar-free vegan way of life has been huge for me, has been so healing, has honestly rocked my world, which I've written all about in my ebooks if you guys are interested to learn more there. And then how I took my health into my own hands to heal chronic inflammation and pain in my body with nutrient-dense plant foods, how I, over the course of several years, ended up losing all of that weight to be back in my body where I feel good. So even by the time we got engaged, I would say I was so happy and healthy in my body again. And it was the most incredible feeling. And my heart really goes out to anyone who's listening who's suffering from hormone imbalances or from autoimmune issues that keep you in a body that you don't feel good in, because I get it, because I know what it's like to eat healthy, to exercise, to sleep, and to do all the things and to still be really ridiculously inflamed. And just know that if that's happening to you, you are not alone. You can always get checked out, get your hormones checked, get your blood panels done, see what's going on with you, because there's always another way. There's always a way to heal, and it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be glamorous, and it's probably not going to happen very quickly, but a healing journey is a healing journey all the same. And if you're being given the opportunity to go on a healing journey, you're lucky. I mean, seriously, like, I know it sounds crazy because every time I say it, because Lyme was the hardest thing to ever happen to me, but it was the best thing to ever happen to me. If you're being given the opportunity to heal, just know that your soul chose this life path to up-level, and there's nothing like it. There's nothing better. There's nothing more fulfilling or rewarding. And for me, this has been many years coming now, and now I can truly say 2020 Jordan is so confident. And this brings me to why I started recording this episode in the first place. And it's because on Instagram, I ended up writing something. I answered a question in a Q&A when I was asked, do you ever have body image issues? And I said, no, I really, really don't, but I get it because I used to. And I said, if you guys want to hear me talk more about this, I'm happy to. And so many of you, I mean, hundreds of you messaged me back and said, please do an episode on this. So here we are doing the episode. And I wanted to get to your questions because you guys sent in really good questions about this. And then I'll just talk a little bit more about how I achieved the way that I feel now. Okay, so before we get into that, I want to thank our second sponsor for today's episode, Go Macro. Go Macro is my favorite vegan protein bar company. And just so you know, you can use the code BLONDE for 30% off plus free shipping on gomacro.com. They have a brand new flavor that just came out in March, which is their double chocolate and peanut butter chips, which seriously tastes like a Reese's peanut butter cup. I am so obsessed with it. I eat it every day. And if I'm not eating it, Jonathan's eating it. We go through a box of Go Macro bars in our house pretty constantly. It tastes so delicious. Just to tell you a little bit more about the company, Go Macro bars are made from simple, high quality ingredients, and they're all certified organic, vegan, gluten-free, kosher, non-GMO, clean, raw, and soy-free. And if you happen to have nut allergies, they do have nut-free flavors. They have like a really delicious sunflower seed butter flavor and maple sea salt flavor that is so delicious. And then just to tell you a little bit more about their new flavor, it blends protein-rich peanuts with fair trade vegan chocolate, creamy organic peanut butter, and their very own house-made peanut butter chips, which is pretty awesome because I really don't think you can find sugar-free peanut butter chips like anywhere, but since they make their own and they put them in the bars, They're as healthy and natural and organic as you could want. And they also tossed in a handful of their delicious chocolate chips. It's my favorite flavor of theirs. And I also love their products because they don't upset my stomach. They don't hurt my stomach at all. And I've been loving getting messages from you guys, my fellow sensitive stomach warriors, telling me that you've been trying Go Macro and that they're not upsetting your stomach either. That makes me so happy. And there's a reason why I stuck to all Go Macro on my wedding day, which was because I wanted to eat something that I could trust that wouldn't bloat me and wouldn't make me feel not good. So check them out. Use the code BLONDE for 30% off and enjoy. Thank you, Go Macro, for sponsoring. Okay, so now we're going to get into the questions that you guys asked me about body image and confidence. So this question, I'm going to keep these anonymous since this is kind of a personal topic. So someone asked, I have a bad habit of looking at my stomach too much and critiquing it. Any tips? So yes, my tip for this, I totally get this. I used to do this too, especially when I wasn't feeling good in my body at all. My tip for this would be to know that the more energy you put into something, the more you're going to notice it and the more likely you are to probably not change it. So what I like to do, if I genuinely notice something about my body that I would like to change, is I acknowledge it. I write about it. I journal about it. I set some intention into the universe, like I would like this to change. I would like my arms to be stronger, whatever it may be. And then I let it go and I release it with love into the universe because I know if I harp on it and I focus on it all the time, because of the law of attraction, the message you're actually sending out to the universe, even if you have all the best intentions of saying, I don't want to feel this way anymore, is you're always sending the message into the universe that you still want to feel this way because you're thinking about it and you're harping on it all the time. So specifically with your stomach, I would say, first of all, send that part of your body so much love because a lot of times, if there's a part of our body that we have notoriously not loved for any part of our life, then that part of our body holds a lot of trauma and holds a lot of emotion. So first, put your hands on your stomach, send your stomach so much love. Thank your stomach for being a part of your beautiful ecosystem of your body and ask your stomach what it wants to say to you. Maybe the reason why you don't love the way it looks, maybe it's bloated, whatever else, is because you're not listening to what it actually has to say to you. And I know this might sound a little out there for some people listening. I totally get it. But when I started actually speaking to my body and giving the different parts of my body a chance to open up and tell me what they really needed, my life started to drastically change. And this is something that I learned when I was on plant medicine. And then I channeled a lot about it into my Waking Back Up to Your Soul course, which we can leave in the show notes. And I think this is a really good and relatable question. So I'm really, really happy that you asked. Okay, the next question is thoughts on breast implant illness and breast implants. I think I know the answer, but I would love your take. Okay, so breast implant illness is a real thing. I have never experienced it because I have never had breast implants. And I'm glad we're talking about this now because people ask me all the time if I've had breast implants, and no, my breasts are all natural. And quite to the contrary of what a lot of people think and ask me, which I guess is a compliment. But I know other people who have suffered from Lyme disease have had terrible breast implant illness, like Yolanda Hadid, where the silicone from her implants was floating around in her lungs and in her bloodstream and was making her so sick she probably could have died. It was so toxic. So I always recommend to go as natural as possible when it comes to this kind of thing. And I'm not against plastic surgery in any way, but if you have a sensitive system and if you know that you have Lyme disease or anything similar, I would highly caution you against breast implants. And if you have them, I would honestly tell you to get them out. My friend Erica, who has the podcast share your shine with her sister, Melissa. I know that she had her breast implants removed and she talks about it on Instagram. So I would recommend checking that out. I wish I could say more. I don't know that much about it, but I would caution you against it if you're thinking about getting breast implants. How to deal with body image when dealing with chronic pain and not being able to work out. Okay, that's a really good question because those of us who have chronic illness and chronic pain, it's very rare that we're able to exercise, and that's really hard. So what I tried to do for the last several years when I was dealing with this, when I was dealing with chronic pain and not able to work out for so long, was number one, to at least move, because I know it's hard. I know it's hard when you can't even get out of bed. But if you're able to get on the ground and do some stretching, even if it's just child's pose and laying on your back and moving your legs a little bit, even that helps and makes a world of difference rather than being 100% sedentary. And then also going on short walks, even if they're really short, like around the block, can also make a world of difference. Because I've found that if you're able to move at all, low impact exercise like walking and light yoga can be very, very, very effective. And in my case, it can be more effective than high intensity workouts. And that was something that had to switch in my mind because I always felt that high intensity was the only way to see results. But what I realized was high intensity was actually flooding my body with too much cortisol, and I wasn't seeing any results at all. I would also recommend Melissa Wood Health's workouts. They're very low impact, and I think they're accessible for people with chronic illness, especially her easier flows, like her yoga flows and some of her Pilates flows, just to get you feeling strong again and get you feeling good. And then if you really can't work out, can't move, can't walk, which I totally understand because I've been there too, focusing on your nutrition and what you eat is still very empowering. So rather than laying in bed and wallowing in your sorrow of not being able to work out, and so just eating whatever you want and just throwing caution to the wind, I would say use this time to really treat your body with such love and give yourself the nutrition that you need, focusing on healthy foods, nutrient-dense vegetables and fruits and juices, and maybe even juice for a couple days if that feels good to you. And I promise you will start to feel more empowered and you'll start to trust yourself more by making these really beautiful, loving choices for yourself. How do you balance a desire to control your life through food without feeding your body junk? Okay, this question is good. So I made that decision, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, that I wasn't going to feed my body junk anymore. I'm laughing because Jonathan's in the kitchen getting a bag of Siete chips, which is not junk. We love Siete, and that looks delicious. And he's being as quiet as he possibly can. This is the quarantine life, being really, really respectful of each other. Okay, so how do you balance a desire to control your life through food without feeding your body junk? Okay, so first of all, I would say if you have a desire to control your life through food, I would try to reframe that wording a little bit in your mind, because we're not looking to control our lives through food. We're actually looking to release that control into the universe and just live in the flow. And if you do have a desire to feed your body junk, that probably means that you're just off in some way. And you've got to get back to balance and get back to homeostasis. So the first couple days are always the hardest. The first couple days of eating really well and treating your body with the utmost respect. But once you do it for just a couple days, eating nutrient-dense plant-based foods, and it doesn't have to be 100% plant-based if that doesn't speak to you, but eating nutrient-dense foods and avoiding the junk food, you will start to gain that trust with yourself again. And then ultimately, you won't even want to feed your body junk. And getting outside and being in nature, that always helps me a lot too, because nature always reminds us what we need and what we don't need. Okay, what are your top tricks and tips for avoiding self-hating body thoughts. Okay, I love this. So whenever I start to slip into any kind of negative self-talk, the first thing I do is I either go into nature or I sit down and meditate, and I put my hands on my body. I put my hands on any part of my body that really need love and really need to speak to me. So if it's like my bloated stomach that I'm feeling unhappiness with, or if it's my brain that feels like it's on fire, I'll literally put my hands on that part of my body and let that part of my body speak to me. And sometimes I have to meditate first to really get into the headspace. And sometimes that is the meditation. And once I let that part of my body speak to me and tell me what it really needs, so much shifts and so much changes and so much opens up. And it's a really good feeling. And it's a very healing feeling. And I think anytime we can avoid negative self-talk is the best thing we can do. So if that doesn't resonate with you, maybe going outside, maybe going for a walk or a run or listening to a podcast in nature will get your mind off of it. And then you can come back to yourself with more loving thoughts. But honestly, focusing on what you can do to improve your health, like eating better, moving more, being kinder to yourself, surrounding yourself with more positive people, more positive energy, changing your routine by even just starting your day differently. Sometimes those little things make the biggest shifts. I really think that will all begin to help. And that kind of stuff has helped me a lot. And then if you feel that you really need help from someone else, I think speaking to a therapist or some kind of health coach is always advisable. And early in my journey, that helped me a lot. So I would really highly encourage you to do that if it feels too heavy to deal with on your own. Okay, the next question: does someone have to know the specifics of their ancestral trauma in order to heal it? No, because I can say this from experience, because I definitely didn't know all the specifics, but a lot of information has come forth to me through channeling and through meditating and through connecting to my ancestors. So I would highly recommend my course, Waking Back Up to Your Own Soul, which we'll link in the show notes, for healing ancestral trauma and starting to work with your ancestors in that way. Such a good question. How do you not compare your body to others? Also, thoughts on Botox, fillers, etc. Okay, so how do I not compare my body to others? I've learned to not compare because all of us are so genetically different. I know we all have that friend who's just rail thin no matter what they eat. I have a lot of friends like that. But just know that they have their hangups with their body as well. And we're all so different. So one person could eat one way and look a certain way and feel a certain way. The next person could try to eat that way and look and feel completely differently. So I've really stopped comparing myself because I know that we are all so different and we're all so unique. And that's what makes us so beautiful. And I think once you start to love yourself from the inside out, you start to notice different things and really beautiful things about yourself. Like, you might not have the ideal body that you're striving for yet, but your skin might glow and radiate from the inside out, or your eyes might pop in the most beautiful, magical way, or you might be the friend that everyone comes to for advice because you're just so understanding and loving. And so starting to love and notice all these wonderful qualities about ourselves, I think really helps us strengthen not only our confidence, but our love for ourselves. And when we strengthen the love for ourselves, then we open ourselves up to the law of attraction and more love to flow in. And then it helps with comparison a lot. And whenever I see someone who I'm really inspired by, I let myself be inspired by them without comparing myself to them. So someone who's really strong or really athletic in a way that I haven't been able to be lately, I just use that as inspiration to get strong again. And I also know and remind myself that I'm not going to look like them and they're not going to look like me. And that's the beauty of being human. And if anyone ever makes me feel bad about myself, on social media or anywhere else, then I just try to not consume their content and maybe go back to it at a later date when it doesn't bother me anymore, or maybe never go back to it. But I will say that doesn't really happen to me anymore because I just don't find myself comparing myself anymore for those reasons. And the second part of your question, my thoughts on Botox and fillers, I think to each their own. I wouldn't rule anything out. I'm approaching 30. I'm noticing new lines and creases in my face that I've never noticed before. For me, because of Lyme, I try to go as natural as possible. So I don't see myself doing Botox or fillers or anything in the near future. But I think whatever makes you feel good, whatever makes you feel confident is the way to go. And I don't really have any judgment about those kinds of things. Okay, how do you keep yourself from binging on unhealthy things in terms of your mental state? Okay, so I think you mean food, but you might also mean other things as well. So, how to keep yourself from binging on food? Hopefully, earlier in the episode, I've hoped to have given you some tips on that there. And then another thing that I can say about that is once you make the decision that you're not going to binge anymore and you're not going to treat your body in that way anymore, you build upon your trust and it becomes a really beautiful thing where once you have a few days under your belt and then you have a few weeks and then a few months and eventually longer under your belt, it's just a lot harder to go back and backslide and do it again. And then I find that even when I do backslide and have a moment where I just stuff my face with food, which definitely still happens, I give myself so much grace and so much love because I know that it was a one-time thing and it doesn't have to become an all the time thing again. And it's not going to become an all the time thing again because I've come so far. So whether you've come so far by not binging for a couple hours or a couple of years, you just have to trust yourself and know that change can happen and change can be yours and healing can be yours. And I got this really amazing little message on my tea bag yesterday. I believe it said, never forget the infinite possibilities of self or something. I'm probably butchering it, but know that there's infinite beyond infinite possibilities for yourself, for you to grow and change and evolve. So if you've labeled yourself someone who binges or someone who has an unhealthy relationship with food, know that that can always change, that can always evolve, that can always open up in so many different ways. And I found that really comforting yesterday when I pulled that. I almost said card, but it was really just a tea bag because it was just so beautiful and it was so poignant, and we can always change, and there's infinite possibilities for healing and for evolving and for changing and for growing. So I hope that that helps. Okay, there's so many more good questions here. So I'm going to choose 3 more and then I'm going to save the rest of them for part 2. So if you've sent in a question and you don't hear the answer on this episode, hopefully you'll hear it next week in part 2. There's so many more good ones. What are we going to choose next? We are going to do how to support someone else who talks about their body in a subtle but shameful way. I love, love, love this question. I'm sure we've all been in that position where we have a friend who talks negatively about their own body, and how can we support them? So I know that this can also be very triggering for us, for the person who the friend is speaking to. And I know when I was first really healing from all these negative patterns of self-talk, and if I had a friend who spoke to themselves that way in front of me, I would always just try to flip the script and make the conversation more positive. So if they said something to me like, oh my God, I can't believe I just ate this way. I feel so disgusting. I've gained so much weight. I would just use that as an opportunity to either respond positively to them or kind of just change the subject, acknowledge them, but change the subject. So I would usually say, well, I know it sucks. I've totally been there. You know, I've experienced that, but use this opportunity to grow from it and to know how bad it feels so that you don't do it again. And just use this opportunity as a gift because these things only happen until we don't need them as teachers anymore. So I would say something like that. Or I would just say, yeah, I know. I know what it's like to not feel good. So sorry you feel that way. Anyway, what did you think of Vanderpump Rules or whatever? Just so that they would know I'm not really interested in talking about that. But I don't think you have to be so blunt with saying I'm not interested in talking about that because it's important to support them and to be there for them, but also just not really enable dwelling on the behavior, if that makes sense, and just letting them know I'm not going to get caught up in a shame spiral and in a toxic conversation about your body or my body. I'm here to talk about positive things and bring light to your life. And then if they reach out to you and they really want to talk in a very open, candid way, that would be a totally different conversation to tell them things that you might think will help them or help them find the help that they need or give them podcasts and books and resources that have helped you. That would be the ultimate positive, but only when someone's ready to be helped. Okay, so 2 more questions. How to reconnect to your body and feel sexy while recovering from autoimmune. This one's tough because when you are recovering from being sick and you just don't have the energy, it's really hard. But I think a few things that have helped me a lot are just focusing on feeding my body pure, nutrient dense foods that I know digest really well and make my body feel good and give me energy, then I feel like myself and I do feel sexy. And being with a partner, choosing to be with someone who sees the best in you no matter what, that is so key and so helpful because when I was feeling my worst and we were walking around Bali 3 years ago, and I was asked by multiple Balinese women if I was pregnant and I had cystic acne and all this stuff. Jonathan would remind me every day how beautiful I was and how much he loved me no matter what, and reminded me to be confident and reminded me that confidence comes from the inside. So, not to get too caught up in how I feel on any particular day because that's always going to be fleeting. I'm always going to have days where I'm inflamed or days when I'm bloated or days when I'm just not feeling my best. And likewise, I'm always going to have days where I'm just feeling really good and really cute. So knowing that that's all fleeting and that it really comes from the inside. What I like to do is like put on some music that really hypes me up and makes me feel good. And I dance and I let loose and I look in the mirror and I tell myself how much I love myself. I put on clothes that make me feel really good. I move. Yoga helps me so much. These are all things that help a lot. And I also want to continue answering this question in the next episode, because I have a lot to say. And then final question that I'm going to answer here. How do you accept that it's okay to gain weight during quarantine? Well, I think the answer to this question is that it's okay to accept that it's okay to gain weight anytime. So it doesn't matter if it's during quarantine or any other time, because my thought is that during quarantine, that shouldn't really make a difference to you because you still have access to moving your body, even if it's inside. You still have access to food, healthy food, even if it's frozen. I mean, we've been going through frozen vegetables and canned beans and things like that, which are much more affordable and accessible during a time of quarantine, but it's still healthy. And then still moving your body. And I totally understand that it's very different because you can't go to your regular workout classes and you can't spend the same amount of time outside and you don't have easy access to a grocery store or anything like that. But I think basically just knowing that this time of quarantine is also kind of a metaphor and a symbol for life will help you see that this is like no excuse really. And I hate to be the bearer of that news if you don't agree with me. And I know there's a lot of mental health things going on right now. And if that's what you're dealing with, I have a lot of compassion. But just in general, you don't I don't really think it's a positive thing to use the quarantine as an excuse to not be active and to not eat well and to just sit around and potentially gain weight. But my other answer to your question is it is okay to gain weight, and it's okay to gain weight now, and it's okay to gain weight when quarantine's not happening anymore. And it's all okay because it's much more about how you feel on the inside. And you could have the most perfect body that you've always aimed for, and you could be miserable because maybe there's a lot more going on inside that you haven't dealt with yet. So it's much more about the inside and focusing on how you can be happy and confident and healthy and radiant in your skin from the inside out than anything else. But do know that no matter what happens during this time is okay. And you can always make the choice to flip it around and flip the script and make a change. And I'm here to remind you that that's possible. And if you are not feeling well right now, if you are gaining weight, or if you are not feeling confident, know that right now, literally right now, in this moment, rewind it if you have to hear it again, is a new moment, a new breath of life, and you can make a change now. And that's such a beautiful and exciting thing. And I'm excited for you to make that change if that's how you feel. And just to kind of wrap it all up and bring it all home, the point of this episode was confidence and finding confidence from the inside out and knowing that confidence is an inside job, and that when you connect to your heart space and your spirituality and you let your body speak to you and you let these different parts of your body speak for themselves, so much change can happen and so much change can occur. And then the other part of this episode, the other inspiration for this episode is that it's okay to want to make changes and to live optimally and to lose weight and to get stronger or to get more toned or to eat healthier or whatever it may be. That's okay. And anyone who tells you otherwise, you can just tune them on out because it's all okay. And you can be body positive while also wanting to live optimally and wanting to make changes. And that's all good because I think, and I know in my heart that being in the pursuit of your healthiest, happiest life is an exciting place to be. And that's where I am right now. I feel amazing in my body. As I mentioned years ago, I gained 30 pounds. Now I've lost all of that weight. I feel like I'm at my very ideal weight for my body, but I still have so many goals. I have goals for clearer skin. I have goals for more energy. I have goals for more strength. I have goals to feel better in my everyday life. And I absolutely love that. I love the aspiration of being more, of striving for more, of knowing that there's more health to reach. There's bigger and greater and brighter and more beautiful things for all of us. And it's an exciting thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So I hope that this episode has inspired you in that way. And if you've ever been scrolling through social media and felt like you were being shamed for wanting to make a change and wanting to find a more optimal, healthy life, know that I see you and you're not alone and we got this. And it's exciting and let's all do it together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on creating things for all of us, those of us who feel this way, those of us who are ready for deeper, bigger, juicier, huge health and lifestyle up-leveling. Because when you up-level spiritually, you want to up-level in all areas of your life. That's truly how I feel. So yeah, I'm going to be working on that. If you haven't checked out my 22-day detox program, I highly recommend doing so. We'll leave the link in the show notes. You can use the code TBBLOVE for 11% off just during this time of quarantine. It is a 22-day salt, oil, sugar-free detox that will hopefully and definitely leave you feeling amazing. There's also lots of stories in there about my healing journey. There's information about food combining and detox protocols like saunas and coffee enemas and beyond. I also have my SOS free recipe ebook, which I hope will be another tool for you during this time. And there's 60 recipes in the Detox also. And I'm going to keep creating things for us and keep recommending you guys to my favorite fitness accounts like Melissa Wood Health, somebody who's recently been on this podcast, and Kenzie Burke, my amazing friend who teaches about the plant-based way of life and food combining and more. And then I have my episode coming out next week about health coaching, and will be part 2 of this health journey and health coaching info and finding confidence and radiating from the inside out. So I can't wait to bring you that. And also, if you feel inspired to rate and review the podcast on iTunes, please do so. And then send me a screenshot to jordan@thebalancedblonde.com of your rating and review. And I will send you my yoga ebook for free. So hopefully that will be a nice thing to do during this time of quarantine too, or anytime. And then thank you so much to our sponsors, Organifi, code BLONDE for a discount, and Go Macro, also code BLONDE for a discount. Love these sponsors. Love you guys. I'm so grateful for you. Check out our Soul on Fire podcast tribe on Facebook to keep the conversation going. And then, as always, shoot me a DM on Instagram or comment on my latest photo to let me know what you thought of this episode and how it made you feel and all the things. I'm here for you. I love you guys, and we'll talk soon. Mwah.